Hello everybody, I'm Roxy and this is Wreck Me BS. So today I bring you a very special video that I just came up with, and it's a short story wrap up. If you recall my goals video for 2019, I'm going to link it down. One of my goals was to finish books more, in the sense of not starting dipping in and out of so many books that I'm juggling 10 books at a time. But another one of my goals was to not be so concerned to finish books, in the sense that I gave myself time to read longer books and also read anthologies. I have tons of anthologies. Contrary to a lot of people, I actually love anthologies. What I love about them is not only that they give me a sampler of many different authors that I might have otherwise not read, but also that they really allow me to focus on the work itself. Sometimes in short story collections especially, you consider them as a whole, so even if the short story is not that good, you sort of get where it's coming from, you get it in the wider context of the short story collection, and so on and so forth. But when you read in an anthology, it's sort of competing in the best possible sense with all the other short stories, and it has to stand on its own, and I think that's fascinating. Additionally, this semester I have a course in short story, and so whenever I feel like I have enough short stories to tell you about, maybe up to 10, I will make a video about them and recommend them to you. I know a lot of people don't read short stories, they like the depth that novel provides. I think that's very sad. I love novels clearly, but I think short story is an art. The same way I feel about short books, you can check out that video down below. That's sort of how I feel short stories. It takes a different kind of talent. Additionally to wrapping up 5 short stories today, I will show you 5 anthologies that I'm really into reading right now. Let's begin. First story I want to tell you about is The Curious Case of Benjamin Button by F. Scott Fitzgerald. This I read from the collection Tales of the Jazz Age, which is actually a collection that Fitzgerald put together. However, the stories weren't written to be together, and I'm not reading this as a collection, so I think that's interesting. Also, each story is prefaced by Fitzgerald's comments, which I think is very interesting. If you have watched the movie with Brad Pitt, you know that The Curious Case of Benjamin Button is about a man who experiences time backwards. When he's born, he looks like an old man, and then when he dies, he looks like a baby. However, the movie follows this very romantic arc between the protagonist and the love of his life, and also it focuses on the physical appearance. So when Benjamin is young and looks old, he is young inside. This is very much not the case. Here, the protagonist experiences time backwards, really. He acts like an old man at the beginning, and then he sort of becomes youthful as he ages. So by the time he's a baby and he's old, he feels like a baby, which is infinitely more interesting. So if you've watched the movie, this is nothing like it. It's ironic and beautiful and doesn't focus on love, but actually in the relationship of this man with the other 2 men in his life, his father and then his son. It's just fascinating. One of the best things that I've read from Fitzgerald. Do yourself a favor and pick this up. Then another by Fitzgerald, in case I haven't mentioned this, I love Fitzgerald quite a lot. Crazy Sunday, in a collection called The Curious Case of Benjamin Button and 6 Other Stories, selected by Penguin Modern Classics. What is funny about this is that this is not actually a collection put together by Fitzgerald, and I bought it not immediately after or before I bought Tales of the Jazz Age, but I remember them being kind of close. I bought this one because I wanted to read The Curious Case of Benjamin Button specifically a long time ago and never did. And when I saw that that was in Tales of Jazz Age, I was like, oh my god, I'm so dumb. But then when I wanted to read Crazy Sunday and that wasn't in Tales of the Jazz Age, but it was here, I felt like I'm so smart, because actually that short story, Benjamin Button, is the only one that Anyway, Crazy Sunday is a Hollywood story of classic affair between a screenwriter and I don't know if the wife of a director or also an actress. I don't remember if she's like just a socialite, but yeah, they have this sort of thwarted affair Stella has also a tremendous relationship with her husband. She really loves him, but she was also kind of sick of him, and also the husband sort of really neglects her. This is not Fitzgerald's best. I feel it works very well if you know a lot about Fitzgerald. He wrote this while he was trying to work in Hollywood and trying to write movies, and also it sort of really reflected a lot of his feelings on relationships and on his own relationship with Zelda. So it is very interesting, and it is well written because, you know, Fitzgerald writes like God, but I don't think it's his best. Unless you really love Fitzgerald, I just would skip this one. I also read The Pearl Letter by Edgar Allan Poe. I don't know why I read this, because this is a collection of like his great short stories. The Pearl Letter is a detective story. A letter goes missing from the Prime Minister, I think, and the chief of the police is telling Detective Dupont about it, and they cannot find it, and then Dupont does, only by figuring out the character of the person who is hiding the letter. It's not Poe's best. I haven't read that much by him. I've read like the classic, and I think The Purloined Letter is one of his famous ones, but it does sort of go into a tangent of imagination and how having the soul of a poet is not antithetical to being very mathematical and logical in your thinking. It's interesting, but I don't think it's his best. I think way too much dialogue. Everything is told by exposition, which I know it's done in a lot of detective stories, but I feel like in this one it doesn't work that well. Oh, I should mention that this was a reread, but I feel like a mark of great thrillers and mystery novels is that when you reread them knowing the outcome, you get to notice all this other stuff that make the story great. Otherwise it's just an okay story with a good plot twist. Although again, it has like a lot of critique towards the system, but I don't know, I just feel it's very dry. It doesn't have that dark charm that's almost bubbling from other Poe stories. Then I read The Husband's Stitch. That one was also for the class, by Carmen Maria Machado. She is an author that I've had sort of in the back of my mind ever since I started BookTube. When I started watching BookTube, she was very big, and a lot of people were reading her collection, Her Body and Other Parties. I've heard mixed reviews about that collection in itself, and I've never felt inclined to pick it up, but The Husband's Stitch is heralded as her best, which I think is fair. I don't know, I haven't read more by her, but The Husband's Stitch is amazing. It's about a woman who recounts her relationship with her husband and her child, and also has a ribbon in her neck that is sort of private and no one should touch it. We don't know what until the very end, but it shouldn't be touched. More than that, because that sounds kind of simplistic, it engages a lot with female narratives in sort of cultural history, especially fairy tales, and also it talks about boundaries and devotion and what we give and what we demand and what we take. It's of course magical realism, but in a way that's very well done. I recommend it. I think you should read it. It's on the Granta website in case you want to read it. And finally, and this is a reread for the 100th time, I reread The Human Claim by Alice Smith. You know I love Alice Smith. The Human Claim is about a woman who is thinking about D.H. Lawrence and his ashes and what happened to his ashes, because she's reading a biography on him, and she gets home and she receives a card statement saying that she used it to purchase a ticket that she didn't purchase. It's hilarious, and I actually think it's a great place to start with Alice Smith, because Alice Smith has this really awesome style, pulls off what nobody else can, of playing with text very explicitly, being very intertextual on page, and having very similar styles, but always with very different voices. I never feel her characters are the same person, even if the techniques are the same and they engage with the same themes. I don't know how she does it. She's amazing. But often her writing can come across as very dense because it goes in all these directions and on all these tangents. But I think The Human Claim is a great place to start with her, because even if you don't get any of the Lauren stuff, even if you don't like any of the intertextual part, it's still so funny and so relatable. It's just a very charming, compelling story, and I really, really recommend it. Okay, I've been talking for a long time, but I want to show you 5 anthologies that I have. It's not near all of them, but you know, I'm a book hoarder, so it's good that I'm reading stuff. The first one is the Penguin Book of the British Short Story. It's the second part, the modern part, from P.G. Wodehouse to Zadie Smith. And I thought this was the Malcolm Bradbury one, but it's actually the Philip Hensher one. I love British literature and I want to read more of it. I have Town and Country, New Irish Short Stories, edited by Kevin Barry. Kevin Barry is a new Irish author. He has been prominent in the literary fiction realm. He was the winner of the 2015 Goldsmith Prize with Beetlebone, which I love. I've also read a short story collection by him. I've also read lots of his interviews and I'm very interested in everything that he has to say. He's very honest and funny. This, of course, is not that new. This is from, let's see, 2013. It's already 6 years old, so they are not so new. But I've read a couple of these and some of them have been great. There was one I really didn't like and I didn't see the point of it being there. But yeah, I also have the Persephone Book of Short Stories. If you don't know Persephone books, you must pick them up. They are a small London-based imprint. They focus on mainly reviving forgotten women authors. They do some like bigger classics and they have like 1 or 2 books by men. For example, they have one by Howard Wolf, I think, but mainly they want to revive modern classics by forgotten females. I think it's wonderful. I like the selection. My only disappointment with this is that for Shirley Jackson they included The Lottery, which is her most famous, and I would have hoped they would have put something else in there just to let people know Shirley Jackson was more than just The Lottery. But at the same time, they did want to have some pull into the book, so people would not feel like they were only reading strange names, I guess. Starts with a story by Susan Glaspell written in 1909 and it finishes with a story by Georgina Hammock written in 1986. Then I have a collection in Spanish translated into English. It would be A Century of Russian Short Stories from Pushkin to Chekhov. Aside from the ones that I've just named, we have Tolstoy, we have Gogol, we have Dostoevsky. So I'm very excited. I don't know much about Russian literature. I read a couple of Chekhov's and really enjoyed them, so let's see what more is out there. Then I have the Penguin Book of Japanese Short Stories, edited by J. Rubin, and it has an introduction by Haruki Murakami. I've read both their introductions, quite interesting, both of them. I've already read a couple of these, enjoyed a lot of them. The only one I really didn't like is the one by Haruki Murakami, which I feel it's kind of ironic. Cambridge Circus by Shibata Motoyuki. You have to check that one out. I also think Factory Town by Betsuyaku Minoru is great. And then I also tried Yoko Ogawa, who is a very famous Japanese author nowadays, called The Tale of the House of Physics. I thought that one was also quite good. I got this at South Kensington Books in South Kensington in London, which is a very small but very great indie bookstore. If you're ever in South Kensington, you should check it out. One thing that this collection has is that it's organized not chronologically but thematically. So it has Japan and the West, Loyal Warriors, Men and Women, Nature and Memory, Modern Life and Other Nonsense, Dread, Disasters, Natural and Man-Made. It has a great selection. Again, it's also like the edition is very, very beautiful. If you like Japanese literature, and in particular if you like modern Japanese literature, this is a book for you. That's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. It was quite long. Let me know, do you read short stories? What is your favorite short story? Are you thinking about reading more short stories? Because I think that is quite a great idea. And that's it. See you next time.